Welcome to the Nose Plays. Today we're going to be picking up my very first game of Endless Space 2 for the channel. I've had the game since, I think, December, and I've played it a little bit off and on. Um, I'm a lot more excited about it now that the new DLC has dropped, releasing the Vaulter faction to the mix, as Vaulters are by far my favorite faction. I've played with Vaulters in Endless Space 1 quite significantly. I've played the vast majority of my games in Endless Legend with the Vaulters. So I know a lot about them, and I'm very happy with the direction that Amplitude went with this iteration of them in Endless Space 2. That being said, let's go ahead and get us into the game, and I think what we'll do is play the first 10 to 20 turns today and see how that goes. But I'm really excited and happy about this faction. I have disabled some of the cutscenes, so we won't be watching those today, just to save a little bit of time. If you haven't seen them already, you can check them out on YouTube, or better yet, get the game, get the DLC, and start a game yourself and check them out there. What I really want to do with this first 20 turn video is point out some of the unique features of the Vaulters and how you might play them a little differently than you play some of the other factions in the game. So, the first thing that is extremely apparent with the Vaulters as you start the game is that you do not have a home planet or a home colony to call your own. In fact, all you have is a large colony ship called the Argosy. It's pronounced various ways throughout the game. I believe Argosy is the most common pronunciation. Anyways, the Argosy, as you can see in front of us, is a very large colony ship. It is a unique colony ship, and Vaulters colonize new systems in a very unique way, where instead of dropping an outpost and having to build up population over time by porting it from other systems, they literally just wait till they have enough people cryogenically suspended on their colony ship, and they literally drop a colony in one turn. Now that provides us some unique advantages, but also some disadvantages. We'll talk about those as we get started. The first thing that you will notice in every game of Endless Space 2 with the Vaulters is this particular location. This is where you are rescued, so to speak. So your colony ship was knocked off course by a cataclysmic event. It was powered down and drifting in space aimlessly until you, at the very last moment, end up here in the rejuvenation field. The rejuvenation field is a unique location. You always start here, and this unique location adds health regeneration to your ships. So you happen to drift into this dust field, it repairs and regenerates your colony ship and provides you the opportunity to then get back on course, find a planet, and start over. However, a significant amount of time has passed since you last left the planet of Ariga, where your colony ship originally crash landed, and you rebuilt it and left, and that is the story of Endless Legend. So you might want to check that out. But you did make it off the planet, and bad luck has hit you again. So a little bit of good luck now, and hopefully some more as we continue the story of the Vaulters. So, the first thing that we want to do is kind of take a peek at what we have available to us, and this is not looking very promising. So you'll always start, from what I can tell, I guess depending on the settings it may be different, but if you go with something similar to my settings or default settings, you'll have about 3, maybe 4 systems that you can see within immediate reach of your colony ship. Now, unfortunately, only one of these planets in the entire group is colonizable by our ship. It wouldn't be completely critical if none of them were, and I'll explain why. You do not necessarily have to settle your ship on turn 1. However, Waiting too long will definitely put you significantly behind. So you want to do it within the first couple of turns for sure. We're currently going to get a golden age for 6 turns, and that is a significant increase to all of our outputs. Taking an extra turn or two to do that will mean that you'll actually get that bonus for longer, but it does cap out at about 15 turns. So 15 turns is the maximum that this bonus can be accrued. I haven't quite done the math to see if it's worth actually scouting and settling on the moment that this reaches 15 turns. But I know for a fact that if you don't settle on turn 1 or 2 or even maybe 3, it's not completely going to destroy you just because you get that bonus for longer. So keep that in mind. So we've discovered Jaydonyx and Super Spuds. And both of those items are in the Vega system. That might be a good place to go ahead and settle. We also have our starting hero, Petrov Jutka. Petrov Jutka is actually a descendant of the first hero that you start with in Endless Legend, the Valter hero. I can't remember her exact name. I think it's Judith. I can't remember. But anyways, her nickname is the Ghost, and if you read Jutka's backstory, she is related to the Ghost. So kind of a cool little nod to the previous game. We'll probably be using her as a manager of our system. She has some unique traits that we'll discuss in a moment that make that really, really beneficial to get started with. I'm not going to spend a lot of time going over the details. I'll probably do that in a nose video sometime. But I can clearly see that there's a lot of curiosities over here, and there's one planet that we can settle. So let's go ahead and move over towards that planet. I can see 2 branches coming off of this, and so if we happen to uncover a better site as we move over here, we can go to that. If not, we always have the option of settling here on turn 1. Make it there 1 turn. Okay, so we uncovered... what are these things called? They're not systems, but... they're kind of like anomalies, right? No, anomaly is not a good term for this. A neutron star, sure. So if we manage to get our influence large enough that it encompasses this star, we'll get some bonuses to our outputs. That's good. It's relatively close to this system. It would be reasonable to expect that if Vega were around long enough and had enough influence that it could grab that. And +1 influence and +1 science, extra experience on fleet, minus 100% shield capacity on ships. So this knocks out shields? Interesting. That is curious. That effect would be applied to battles on Vega, I believe, if it were included in the system through our influence. Okay, so now we have an option. We can settle immediately, or we can do a little bit more exploring. Let's go ahead and check out this system and see what we're dealing with. So, we have a medium boreal planet with 2 curiosities. It does not have any significant quantity of industry, which is bad for a starting world. It does not have anomalies, which is bad for our hero, and I'll explain why later. And it does not have any secondary planets that we can colonize quickly. So this is not the most ideal system in the world to start with. This planet actually has some pretty good outputs, but it's a snow planet, and we won't be able to get to it right away. +1 population slot's not the greatest ever, but okay. Jaydonyx is really good. Extra industry, extra approval. Super Spuds, extra food, extra approval. So a pretty rich planet for a snow world, for sure. That's actually a really good micro factories on a lava planet is good. Lava planets typically have zero food. Having a little bit of food will help that system significantly. Also the approval. This is actually not a bad system. I'm just not sure that it's a good starting system. 2 more curiosities mean this could be a really rich world if they're positive curiosities. And then -2 science doesn't hurt us that much at all. The approval is meh, but the mixed anomaly is not a super bad one. As if a bad mixed anomaly would be something that reduces industry or food in the early game. Jade Onyx, yeah. So all of these planets, except for the one we can actually colonize, are pretty reasonable, pretty respectable. I think I'm going to go ahead and roll the dice, and we're going to take another turn. We're going to go this way, and we may come back and settle this on turn 3 or 4 if we don't find something better. So, right or left? Let's go to the right. And hope that this is close, so we don't have to waste too much time exploring. Alright, so I want you to pay attention to this counter, because it's going to increase by about 3, I think. Yeah, so now our bonus will be 9 turns. So that's 3 extra turns of significant Golden Age output. Go ahead and finish traveling. We made it. Okay. Let's see if we got a better system. So this is a better starting planet. Small ocean. Small means we're limited in population. Arid means we can't settle these two. Yeah, this is not a good starting system, unfortunately. A good starting planet. If this planet were in that other system, I probably would have just gone with it, even though it's small. But I think what we're going to do, since it's pretty evident that we can make a loop, is we're going to head over here and then finish the loop and go ahead and colonize Vega on the next turn if this system isn't significantly better. This will go up to 12, and then we'll be at 15 turns when we get back to Vega. So we'll maximize our Golden Age instead of starting right away at turn 1. But the Golden Age bonus benefits are not small, so it may help us slingshot back into the game. We're definitely falling behind. And this is the risk you run when you have a system that's kind of okay. Okay, so this is not a system that we can colonize, unfortunately. Calgaroos are not the most useful population to assimilate, but they're not the worst either. Oh boy, and the Lumeris have a fleet coming this way. This is an exploration ship, so the Lumeris are really close to us. We're going to have to go ahead and get going. Andromeda with Daenerys. Interesting. Okay. Well, 2 really close minor factions means that we're going to have to probably dive into diplomacy early. Otherwise, the Lumeris are likely to take these guys over. Nebula Cloud was discovered. Where was that at? Ah, up there by Ying. And the Neris. Let's see, what are these guys? Okay, they produce food. So, yeah. Huh. I don't think I've seen these guys before. I'll admit I haven't played a ton of this game since receiving it. But I'm getting to the point where I'm really starting to enjoy it, so that may change. Alright, so we're going to pretty much cap out our Golden Age, which is good. We'll get 13 turns of Golden Age. We're going to have to go ahead and colonize this subpar planet and hope that our curiosities that we uncover lead to some significant bonuses and no penalties. That's the only way we're going to get a good start here. Let's explain why we went ahead and we did a little scouting. First of all, obviously this system is not the most ideal system ever. But most of these planets are pretty good. They're just going to take a while before we can utilize them. What is nice about this is, let's see if I can find it here. I know there's a screen that shows it. That's not there. Maybe it's here. Here we go. Ah, finally. Okay. So, what this means is that if we had settled on turn 1, we would be with the world that we have right now, but we would only get these benefits for 6 turns. By doing a little scouting, we had the potential to find a better system, which we didn't, and that's fine. But we planned our route in such a way that we could get back to the best system that we had uncovered at that point in time. And we've increased our outputs from 6 turns to 13 turns. So we've essentially doubled the amount of benefit that we received just by doing a little scouting before we settled down. I think in most situations, unless you just have a really ideal system, it's best to scout, because that is a lot of food, a lot of dust, a lot of industry, and a lot of manpower that you're just kind of throwing away if you don't wait till that Golden Age meter has filled all the way up. Now the downside is if you wait too long, it will cap at 15 turns, and at that point you're no longer able to increase it. And so waiting any longer than 15 turns, or getting the meter filled to 15 turns, doesn't really benefit you. So keep that in mind when you're playing the Vaulters. It's definitely worth doing a little bit of scouting, as long as you kind of plan your route to be able to get back to the best system you've seen, in case you don't find anything useful, as we didn't in our situation. But that's a lot. I mean, what is that? Almost 200 extra food, industry, dust, and science. Also a bunch of influence that we'd be throwing away if we hadn't settled a little bit later than what we're starting at. So I think it might actually even out your starting situation. We have discovered deciduous trees. Okay. I'm not sure where that came from, but I can guess. Alright, we now have our scout ship. We're going to go ahead and use that to uncover both of these. Jade Onyx and Titanium. Okay, so that's good. Jade Onyx is one of the most preferred starting ones because of the industry buff, and the approval buff is kind of meh, but industry is always welcome. Titanium is also an industry buff, so that actually shored up the one weakness that this planet had, so that's looking promising. We have 2 more probes. We can launch them over here at this planet. There's not a great reason to do that other than to just get them uncovered. We're not going to be able to inhabit this planet anytime soon, but we might as well go ahead and get these done while we have the probes. Okay, we got another positive anomaly. Food and approval. Oh man, so that made this planet a lot more palatable as far as getting some population on it. Alright, we got some Jade Onyx. We got some reserves of titanium. We got a technology. 200 additional manpower. and 100 health bonus. Protection. I wonder, the health bonus must be a health bonus to the ship, I'm guessing? This is an interesting module. 200 manpower is nothing to sneeze at. It is a good countermeasure to boarding pods, which I go over in my nose-to-nose video on boarding pods. This is a better version of the module that typically gives you just 100 manpower, obviously. That's pretty cool. The other thing that it's useful for is obviously if you're creating invasion fleets, which we may be doing at some point, I feel. And some XP on our ships with the coral reef anomaly. That was pretty cool. I don't know how in the world we found coral reefs on a lava planet, but sure, why not? Coral reefs on a lava planet. How come that one's not showing up? Oh, there it is. So we do have one more anomaly. That was weird. I think you saw that, right? This wasn't actually displaying any of this information. Okay, well, we could really use... Let's see if we can use either of these. Jadonics or Super Spuds might be useful in the early game. And the way that they might be useful, if you come to the Senate screen, go down to population details, and this is unfortunate. So this is where that deciduous tree pop-up came into play. Both of our current populations prefer deciduous trees as their luxury boosting resource, and we don't have access to those. That is quite unfortunate. One thing that you can do if you are lucky enough to get access to your luxury resource in the early game is start boosting your population, and what that essentially does is it doubles their planet effects. So the Vultures would have 40 damage to ground attackers and 2 extra science, so +2 science instead of +1. That's a fairly significant boost in the early game, and then obviously in the late game, depending on how big your populations are, it can be even better. So another thing that we need to do right away is figure out what laws we're going to pass, if any. There are 2 laws that I generally consider passing in the early game, and that is cram for exam. We don't have problems with approval, particularly in the next 13 turns because of our Golden Age bonuses. Also, Dirty Hands can be really useful, but it does start to cut into your influence gains, and so it can lower your ability to do diplomatic things in the future. We have a lot of things that we need to get researched. I'm going to go ahead and enact cram for exam, and that's going to help us get a bunch of stuff researched quickly and kind of slingshot into the mid game, hopefully. Starting buildings. We're going to go ahead and start with just queuing these guys up. We'll change the order as we need. Again, early game, the most important things that you're going to have to increase are food and industry. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and let's apply her, and let's look at her. So the reason that I said that this starting planet wasn't ideal is because of this. This one. She actually adds industry per anomaly on colonized planets on the system. So if the planets that you can colonize happen to have a fair amount of anomalies on them, positive or negative, she can add a significant amount of industry. However, if you're in a system that doesn't have a lot of anomalies, or the anomalies are on planets that are difficult to reach or to colonize, that can be a problem. So fortunately and unfortunately for us, we do have a lot of anomalies in this system. We have 1 on this planet, 1 on this planet, and 2 on this planet. Once we get this system completely colonized, that's an extra 40 industry per turn, which is, you know, in the late game it's not a ton, but it's significant. If we can colonize these systems quickly, it can be a real significant boost. And there is potentially another anomaly here, although this is a life form curiosity. So high chance of an anomaly, I guess, for that one. Low chance of a luxury resource deposit or loot. So we might get another good anomaly. That would be nice. And that would give us 50 bonus industry in this region once we've colonized every system here. We're getting close to ending turn 1, I promise. Turn 1 is always the longest turn whenever I play these games. Alright, we gotta set some science goals here. We know we're gonna need a snow planet. And we can get on that planet really quickly. Arid was the other one, right? I think it was arid. Nice. Arctic. Deserts, this guy. Arid. Okay, so we're definitely going to research one of these two, probably not first, but next. Let's go back to Vega. Okay, so which one of these is going to be most preferable? That pretty much tells the story, doesn't it? So this system has 10 industry per population, 4 dust per population, 2 food per population. This is probably the better choice by far. The other thing that we need to remember is that our population already produces science, so even though we're not getting any science from this planet's population slots, we're still going to be doing just fine with our science. Also, we can later on move some people to this planet, but I think this is the one we want to go with. So let's go ahead and pick up Xenolinguistics, which is almost always a critical technology you want to get in the early game. And again, it's because it produces industry. Industry is the engine that gets you going. By unlocking this, we'll also unlock tier 2 and we'll have access to all of these. It's going to take us a few turns before we get access or need to colonize that other planet, so these 2 planets will be in the queue later. I think we're definitely going to have to dive into diplomacy early, and so I'm going to go ahead and queue this up as my second technology so we can start talking to those minor factions and maybe get one of them to join us before the Lumeris do. The food one in particular is curious because Vultures have a penalty to food, and maybe we'll look at that here in a minute, but that could help offset our food woes a little bit. Okay, I'm happy with that. We've gone through just about everything we need to. I am going to show you a little bit of an exploit that you can take advantage of if you so choose. It's the probe exploit, and if you're familiar with the probe exploit, then you know what I'm about to do. If you're not familiar with the probe exploit, it's a way that you can quickly do some scouting. So if you're in a system that you control, your scout ships can be edited, and you can make changes to them for a small amount of dust. Now, the changes that you make are somewhat irrelevant, but what matters is that you do make an actual change. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and change from these regular guns to, let's just change to lasers. This is going to cost me a little dust, and the usefulness of this change is kind of irrelevant. But what it does allow me to do is, by updating this design, I can then go to the ship, and since I'm in a friendly territory, I have the option for about 30 dust to upgrade that ship. Now normally whenever you retrofit a ship, it will change all of the modules that are different, but the other thing that it'll do is if you have any damage to the ship, it will heal the ship, and every point of damage costs additional dust, so healing can get quite expensive. And finally, it will replenish all of your probes. All of them. So, one of the early tactics that a lot of players who play this game will use is they'll send out all their probes that they have, and then they'll immediately retrofit their ship and refill their probes and send out another wave of them. So we're going to go ahead and do that. It's kind of a exploit. If you don't like the way that it feels, feel free not to use it, but it is definitely an option. So, because we've restocked our probes, we can go ahead and scout this. That one uncovered and find out. Alright, super spuds. So again, not the greatest, but definitely a positive. Better than a negative, right? And so this arid planet's going to be just fine for colonizing, and we will be doing that in the very near future for several reasons. Alright, so now we have 3 more probes. And because we've been launching probes, every time you launch a probe, I believe it uses some of your movement points. So we don't have any movement points left, but we can still continue to launch probes. I'm trying to... Okay, so we're on this arm of the Spiral Galaxy, and we are attached to this arm, it looks like. Let's go ahead... Let's send one probe out that way. Let's see. Let's send one probe out that way. And let's go ahead. It looks like there's a chain over this way, so let's send a probe. Maybe we can see where that system's at that way. And that pretty much wraps up the beginning of the game for us. That was a long start. Took a while to get there, but now we're finally into the game. Okay, turn 5. So right around turn 5, you'll get this part of your quest every time, and we have to decide whether we're going to be a military faction or a focus on science. I'm kind of leaning towards military start this game. Just because we're so close to another faction, there is the real potential that we're going to have to fight early on. Red Seng is not a useful... If it were one of the... If this were deciduous trees, I would be a lot more excited about maybe going this route, because it would allow us to start popping luxury bonuses on our population. But it's not. 75 titanium, while it's not as useful as maybe Hyperium would be in this situation, since we are going to be mining titanium already pretty soon, I think I still want to go this route. We definitely want to have the militaries have some influence in our political dealings in the future, and so that's going to help improve that. One of the nice things about the Vaulters is anytime you increase military actions, they also increase the science action for that particular population pip. If you're not sure what that means, let's go back to this real quick. Just quickly point this out. So Vaulters, every time an action happens, this is kind of how they react to actions that are going on. So anytime you do anything in the game, it'll usually have one of these symbols associated with it, and the more of these things you do, the more likely that particular group gets into political power. One of the neat things is with most factions, they have a trait like this, where every time that they get influence added to one ideology, militaris, it will also add to another. So it makes it very difficult for doing lots of military things to actually completely push out the science party. the science party will always kind of keep pace with the military party because of that. And different factions have this in different parts of the tree, so you'll have to pay attention to that. But as long as most of our population are Vaulters, anytime we're doing military actions, it's also going to increase the influence of the scientific party. And so it's always beneficial to know which one of those is which, because it allows you to kind of focus on this party without pushing the other one out of political favor. And that can be important. Alright, we're doing good so far. Let's go ahead and Xenolinguistics will be in one turn. We can't really do much else this turn, but we do have our ship, and we have one probe. And I think what we want to do is head this way and scout out where the Lumeris actually are at. And one thing we might do is save some probes to try to earn some favor with the Calgaroos. Let's take a closer look at their system and see if there's anything useful here. Yeah, this is not as exciting as I was hoping it might be. So getting these guys assimilated into our empire is not going to be as beneficial as I had hoped. An ice planet with some negative anomalies, not real cool. A really average arid planet, not very exciting. A snow planet with some good... this is okay. I mean, this is an okay planet for sure. And a barren. This is not a great system. Yeah, I'm not real excited about that at all. What about these guys? This is a bigger... it's a 4-planet system. What do they have? Medium Mediterranean planet. An ice, an Arctic, and a snow. All of these are a little bit easier to get on. This could be a really big science. This could be a really big science party or science planet. Sorry about that. I had a visitor at the door, and his name was Jake from State Farm. My dog was being a little bit of a nuisance, but we've taken care of it. Okay. So yeah, this could be a system that puts a lot of science out for us, potentially. But again, it's not something really exciting. I do think that the nearest had a better set of traits than the Calgaroos. So maybe we focus our attention on these guys. There's a couple curiosities here, and we can use that to our advantage to help us slingshot their approval of us. Alright, moving on. Go ahead and advance. Xenolinguistics has been learned. Off-world agribusiness, most specifically the diplomatic trait for minor factions and pirates, is being researched. And we've unlocked a deed. Let's go ahead and check that out. So, by unlocking this Tier 1 tech, we have unlocked Tier 2 techs, and in Tier 2 there is a deed. This deed is: be the first to possess 20 star system improvements in your empire. We have 2 of 20. We are rank 8 of 9. We are way behind in this. 75 Jadonics, which has the potential to provide a massive industry boost to our system development plan once we implement it. That could be really good. I don't know that we're going to be able to catch up and pass everybody else. We did have a slow start compared to everyone else, but we might be able to kind of use that golden age to slingshot us into a better position. We'll see. One thing we're seriously lacking right now is this Hyperium resource. I haven't seen a single instance of it yet, and that's going to be critical to getting certain Vaulter specific buildings off the ground. There are some alternative ways to get some Hyperium. They're not ideal, but in a pinch you can utilize them to get going. I'm going to let this one finish before I make a decision on what I want to do after that. Alright. Yeah, the Calgary's system doesn't even have any curiosities. We're going to go ahead and move. Okay. So they're already getting their second system down. And this is where I was pointing out that the Vaulters get some advantages and some disadvantages from their colony system. Other factions can very quickly, in some cases, get outposts down, sometimes multiple outposts in the early game, and grab a bunch of territory very quickly. We don't have that option. We have to wait until our colony ship is fully stocked and ready to go. There is a window of time where you can actually rush it, but rushing it requires using a fair amount of resources, most particularly titanium and Hyperium, both in equal quantities. And that cost will eventually degrade to zero and allow you to settle for free, but you're going to have to pay a significant amount of dust, titanium, and Hyperium if you want to rush your colonies. Now, the benefit of our system of colonizing is we immediately start with colony and with influence. These systems can potentially be put under siege and dealt with because they're not like full-fledged colonies. They're just little outposts that are trying to get started. They can't build any buildings, they can't do any diplomatic or military things. So yeah, and multiple factions can race to a system to see who can colonize it first and push each other out. So we don't get to play that part of the game though. We either get there first or we don't get there. Alright. We're gonna have to pick a technology now. I'm not really sure. We can do some trade. That's really powerful. It's kind of expensive though. Our dust is looking okay at the moment. Yeah, I think we're going to go ahead and focus on... You know what? We chose the military path. And yet, we know... Alright, let's go ahead and grab this one. Let's grab this one for a couple of reasons. So, one of the best things you can do in the early game are grab technologies with this icon. What this icon represents is planetary specializations. So these planetary specializations basically add free output to your systems. They don't take very long to enact, and you can change them at will. They're very beneficial as your population grows, and there's one for every single type of resource you can imagine. So there's one for science, there's one for industry, there's one for influence. Not having them active is just throwing away free technology or free resources, so to speak. Now, I know we need this one because we want to settle that arid planet in the very near future. This one is +1 generation to resource deposits, which would give us more titanium and potentially Hyperium down the road. This one is the industry. And this one's really useful for jump starting you. Normally it's locked out at this point, but because we're scientists, we get access to the next tier. And so this is a situation where the vaulters can actually utilize this next tier to get to something that's pretty valuable, but doesn't cost a lot. So this technology is going to give us the ability to increase the industry output of all of our planets, basically for free. And that's pretty powerful. Unfortunately, the rest of this is not as useful right away, but I mean, predictive logistics is useful. We have titanium output, plus extra 20 industry per planet is nothing to sneeze at. I think, how many turns would that be? It's going to be 13 turns before we get that. We're definitely going to need to colonize that arid planet in less than 13 turns, so we're not going to pick that one up right now. But I am going to go ahead and queue it. The other thing we need to start considering is our military. We chose the quest that requires us to drop 4 military buildings, which means we need 4 unique buildings in our one system. Or if we get a second system up and running, we can put 2 unique buildings in each of those systems, and that will qualify as our 4. This technology offers a Vaulter specific building. Must be this one. I'm not sure what's Vaulter specific about that, but Batakai bunkers. These ancient installations are named for an ancient site on Ariga that was an ancient capital of the people. As the legendary city was part underground, so these bunkers are rugged, vast, and highly defensible. This must be a larger capacity than the generic version of this building gives you. I know there's a generic version of this building that all factions have access to. I wonder if it's only 250 capacity instead of maybe 300. Sure, let's go with the Vaulter specific one. And let's move that up in the queue too. That will then unlock all of these. So a single one of these tier 1 traits will unlock all of these. Tier 2 freebies, and then we'll have access to this tree, or this part of the wheel. I keep saying tree, it's not really a tree at all. It is in a lot of other games though. Okay, we're going to finish this up probably on turn 10. So I got 2 more turns and then we'll end the video for today. I like how this one is going. Okay, so this is an important message you'll see. This is one I actually want to pop up, and I don't normally have many of them pop up like this, but the Argosy is now ready for deployment and can leave the hangar in Vega. So it takes, I think it's always 4 turns to restock the Argosy. Once the Argosy is restocked, you can send it out and use it as kind of a scout ship, but as I'll show you here in just a second, if you click on the Argosy and you mouse over the colonize button, and I haven't found a better spot to find this information. This is the only way that I've been able to discover this. If you mouse over the colonize button, it will tell you how much it will cost to colonize. So our next free colonization will be in 10 turns. In the next 10 turns, all of these totals will drop to 0. Every turn that we hit the end turn button, they reduce by some quantity. Usually about 1 per strategic resource, and then some quantity of dust that's less than 100 but more than 50. Using the Argosy as a scout is somewhat dangerous because it can be attacked and it can be destroyed. If it's destroyed, it will use an emergency jump to get it back to your hangar at one of your nearest systems, but it will take a significant amount of time to repair itself, and it is incredibly destructive if that happens to you. You just will not be able to do any expansion for a long time. So it is critical not to let the Argosy get attacked by pirates or other things. What we're going to do is we have 10 turns. That means we know in about 10 turns, so on turn 18, we will be ready to drop another colony. And so maybe around turn 15, we'll want to send the Argosy out and start looking for a good spot if we haven't already found one. The Argosy has an incredibly high movement speed. So it can get really far really fast if it needs to. Alright, what else do we have going on that we need to deal with this turn? This ship needs to travel. And we're almost here.
I greet you in the name of the 4 families.
Alright, maybe we can be friends. That would be nice for once. To have friends. I don't.
You're one of our favorite fish in this galactic sea.
Well, thanks. You're fishy looking too. Yeah, the Lumeris can be a pain. They definitely have the potential to do some backstabbery things to you. But if you make a good ally with them, they can open up a lot of options for trade, and that can be really, really lucrative. Alright, a couple more turns, we'll end the video. I was hoping that one would reach, and it did. Let's take a peek at their system. So, what was their starting situation like? It was very similar to ours, actually. So that's good. That means we're not too far behind. Remember, we started later than they did, but we had those huge benefits from our golden age, which probably, I mean, just looking at their outputs. So look at their system outputs. 30, 24, 35, 9, and 3. Now compare that to our system outputs. 24, 12, 12, and 35. Why is it not showing our golden age? We should be getting that. Does it show up here? Alright, so we're definitely getting the golden age outputs, it's just not applying it on the planet level. But notice our outputs are way bigger than theirs at the moment. And so that may allow us to slingshot a little bit ahead of them. Cerebral Reality is almost built. I'm going to go ahead and move Xeno-Industrial Infrastructure ahead of public-private partnerships. This will give us a fair amount of industry and will help us get other things built more quickly. Vultures have gained another population. That's good. We found another black hole. That's irrelevant. And we discovered the home planet of the Lumeris. It's a pretty planet. I'll give them that. Okay. It looks like we have a visitor. So they're just scouting this direction, similarly to how we're scouting that direction. No big deal. Now it's time to do some diplomacy. If we can snatch these guys up before the Lumaris get to them, that would be good. Unfortunately, it looks like we're not going to be the first ones to talk to them. We have a little bit of influence, so we can go ahead and praise them once. However, we can increase the value of this action by also using our probes. And so we're going to go ahead and scan some curiosities for you guys. And you're going to be really happy about that. And we found some super spuds, some more Jadonics, and some XP on our fleet. We also have one more probe. I'm just gonna send it that way to see if there's anything over there that we can look at. And then I may just idle him for a few turns. Well, we'll send him over there. It'll take him a while. The probe was probably better served going in a different direction, but that's fine. Next Golden Age will be in 11 turns in duration, so we're getting close. When this fills up to 15, that's the ideal time to settle the Argosy, but we're not going to be able to do it quite that quickly. Remember, we're going to have to wait till, what did we say, turn 18 before it's completely free, and that'll probably be the earliest opportunity we have. Just one last look at this to make sure we're in a good place. Once Cerebral Reality finishes, she'll probably gain her first level. Yep. Alright, Cerebral Reality is done. That's bolstered our science and our dust. And we now have skill points. Okay, so we have some concerning issues here. The biggest concerning issue is that in this short period of exploration, we have found exactly 0 sources of Hyperium. Hyperium is a critical resource for us. We need to have some income of Hyperium. Vaulter heroes start with this particular trait, Resource Scrounger, which gives us an extra half a unit or 1 unit every 2 turns. That is terrible output, but in a critical situation, as we are kind of in the moment, it may be worth doing. I much prefer to go with this, particularly if you're on a fertile system. Plus 10 food on the system is okay, but plus 10 per fertile on system is pretty good if you have a couple fertile planets. I believe we only have 1. Yeah, but it is the one we started on. So that would be 20 food, which is 25% of our current output. An extra 20 food for nothing is not a bad thing by any stretch. We are starting to fill up the population, so we do need to get this going. We'll be able to do that next turn, as this will give us access to colonizing that. We'll move that up into the queue. So, yeah, let's talk about what do we want to do here? This is also a really great ability. I think all heroes have this one. Plus industry and plus food. Once your population starts to grow, can be quite significant. I really like to focus on these two in the early game for a system manager. But in this situation, I think we're going to have to go ahead and get at least 1, maybe 2 points into this. It's the only thing that's going to give us Hyperium in the early game, and we need some level of Hyperium to get certain things going. This will allow us to potentially get the Argosy settled a turn or two earlier, and that might be worth it. Because we are in contact with another empire, it is going to be a little bit of a race to get to some of these systems. Probo actually found something all the way down here. Just a lone frozen planet. Interesting. Okay, I think we're going to go ahead and end the video here for today. I hope you guys have enjoyed watching me play a little bit of Valter's DLC. I have been so excited to play it and have had a lot of fun with it. This has turned out to be a really interesting start, and I hope to continue it at least for another 20 or 30 turns. We'll see if I go through the full game. It will really depend on how many people are watching my channel. I tend to cater my content towards whatever's getting the most views, and right now I have a lot of people that are still watching Northgard videos, so I'll probably be making some more Northgard content. Just as an aside, Northgard recently opened the beta for the single player campaign. So the single player campaign is in open beta now. You can request to give it a try if you're interested. I have not done that. I'll wait till it releases before I play any. But once that does release, there will be some new Northgard content on my channel for certain, and maybe in the near future I might do some more Northgard, just because it seems to be the most viewed content on my channel. So thanks again to SB for everything that he's done to get me into this, and check out his channel for more awesome Endless Space and Endless Legend content. He is the master and I am the apprentice. And until next time, this is the Nose Plays signing off.